If I had to rebuild my entire reusable cloth pad collection, here's what I'd buy. Now, first off, if I was entirely new and I had never tried cloth pads before, I would start with just 2 pads. I would buy a 10-inch moderate pad and a 12-inch heavy absorbency pad, and I would just try them out, see how they fit, see how they feel, how I like the absorbency, and then go from there. You don't need to have a full collection of cloth pads to get started with them. You can just use these couple of pads and then supplement with whatever you're already currently using before you go and dive in and buy a bunch more. They can be a bit more of an investment, so you want to make sure you're getting a size that works best for you. Now, these are the sizes I would buy for my period if I was just starting out, but if you know that you have a really heavy flow, maybe get some of the bigger, more absorbent pads. What I always suggest is take your preferred disposable pad, measure how long it is, and get a cloth pad most similar in length. Now, this is the disposable pad size that I used to use the most when I used to use them, and this is our 12-inch pad. That's why I started with this size, and it works fairly well for me. Now, because I'm not brand new and I do know what I like, I will still show you the collection that I would build if, for whatever reason, I lost my entire cloth pad collection. For reference, my period is kind of on the light to moderate side. I know I'm really fortunate. Have about a 3-day period. 2 of those days are on the heavier side. One of them is really light. And then here are the pads that I would buy for a period like that. So first off, I would start with a couple of our 14H pads for overnight on those first couple of nights when my flow is a little bit heavier. And then on my 3rd overnight, I probably would just get away with a 12-inch pad. And then for my first day that is slightly heavier, I find I like to change about 3 times throughout the day, and I would use our 12-inch heavy absorbency pad for that. So I would get 3 of those. The next day, I probably still will change 3 times, but my flow is a little bit less heavy, so I'd get probably 1 12-inch heavy, and then 2 10-inch moderates would probably be sufficient for the rest of that day. And then the 3rd day, my period's usually quite light, so I would start with just a 10-inch moderate, and then I'd get a couple of our 9-inch ultra thin liners to deal with the spotting throughout the day. And that would be about like the bare bones cloth pads that I would get to make sure I can last an entire cycle. This would probably just barely get me through an entire cycle. And I hope that me kind of explaining the process of how I would choose which pads that I would rebuild my cloth pad collection helps you kind of go through the process to determine what pads you might need for your cycle, because everybody's period is different, their flow type is different, how long it lasts is different. So there is no recommendation I can give for everybody and what cloth pads they might need. So this is just a rough guide. Slowly building your collection, buying pads over time is going to be the best way to make sure that you have a perfectly curated set of cloth pads for your needs without spending a bunch of money on stuff that doesn't quite work for you.